well, seems I covered this one once before, but I think I need to revise it a little bit, bring it more up to date, get people to understand my point a little better. I did this topic like a long time ago, but it involves copyright, specifically copyright as it applies to YouTube. Now, here's the deal. YouTube is supposed to be a fun place. You know, you can take this or that, little clips, little snippets here and there, and you can upload them, and everyone can enjoy them, and you can watch them. Well, see, here's the problem. There are things, you know, there are rules, there are limitations. They're right up there for you to read before you sign on regarding copyright. And what constitutes copyright violation, what constitutes fair use. The fair use clause is out there. And, you know, so when you click, yes, I want to join, you're essentially agreeing to these rules. Now, what happens a lot of times is that people will then upload something, whether it's a scene from a movie, or a clip from a TV show, or an opening theme from an anime, or, you know, something like this. And what'll happen then is that somebody will get copyright claimed on it, and they'll throw a fit. And it's under the pretense that, you know, it's just a tiny little thing. It's not even the whole thing. You know, most of us are reasonable people. Most of us understand that, you know, if someone were to, like, upload an entire movie onto YouTube, that would, you know, that you're pushing it right there. You know, that when someone goes bye-bye after doing that, that's understandable. But, you know, clips or whatever, you figure, you know, this is like advertising for the movie. You know, it'll make people want to see it. You know, why would they say no to this? Other movies are public domain, and those you can upload to your heart's content. What then happens here, though, is this. When people get copyright pulled on videos that they know have a copyright on them, why do they throw a fit? Now, as I was saying, there are some things which are reasonable, you know, to think, okay, maybe I can post this, but when it comes right down to it, the person who owns it. They own the rights to it. They own the process to it. And if they perceive that this is going to hurt them, then they will claim copyright. And it's legitimate. It is legit. I am sorry. Now, there are certain cases, though, where it's not. And this is where the law works in your favor. It's a little something called the Fair Use Clause. Let's see here. I have a copyright disclaimer set up right about here. What it basically says is that, you know, so long as you follow these guidelines that are fair use, you can use whatever material you want, so long as it, you know, falls into these categories. Now, what will happen a lot of times is that certain people, though, figure that fair use means you can just do whatever the heck you want with whatever you want, and it's fair use. Other people will abuse fair use the other way. They will say that, you know, you know, you don't have a right to use this. This is not fair use. Blah blah blah. Yada yada, etc. etc. Now I'm not gonna lie. There is some cases of abuse, but there are other cases of abuse from, frankly, you know, people who take it too far the other way. And that they... Okay, here we go. Never mind, I'll just read this to you here. Once it loads up. So what this is going to be is, I'm going to read this to you. This is basically the Copyright Act. And specifically the clause that applies to fair use. People have used this for a long time now to get out of, you know, people putting copyright claims on their videos, and sometimes, you know, the fair use claims are legit. And it's really simple to do this. This is especially useful if, like, something bogus happens, like WMG says you can't use this song, or because you even used, like, 30 seconds of this song just as background music for your video, they disable all the audio, stuff like that. Usually entering this in works. And it was revised again recently to clarify it. Alright, copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. And then, later clarified, Section 107 contains a list of the various purposes for which the reproduction of a particular work may be considered fair, such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Section 107 also sets out 4 factors to be considered in determining whether or not a particular use is fair. The purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of commercial nature or is for non-profit educational purposes, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So what that basically did do is free it up. You want to post like a scene, a clip, whatever, based on the copyrighted work as a whole. If it's a little clip out of this whole big thing, then yeah, you can use that. And you can file fair use to back it up. Now, here's where things get frustrating, and I know a lot of people get mad about this. What'll happen is, you post it up, and even though it's under fair use, they call copyright on it. Now, people tend to get mad at the company that does it and throw a fit. Or, alternately, they'll take that, and they'll enter it in as they'll dispute the copyright, citing that, and it'll get restored. Then what'll happen is, the company will then come back and say, no, take it down, and you'll get a strike. 3 copyright strikes, to my knowledge, have yet to go away. I have yet to ever see them go away. So, it's a permanent mar, even though it technically falls under fair use. And that is bullcrap. Okay, now there are other cases where once you enter it, it goes away, and it stays away, because what will happen a lot of times is a lot of these companies have bots. These bots will run a search on all their property items, and when it comes up, when something comes up mentioning it, they'll take a look at it, and if it does contain footage from, or music, or whatever from their work, they will call copyright on it. And they'll disable the video as a result of it. So what then happens is, a lot of times, because you challenge the bot with fair use, they get the message that it's been challenged under fair use, and they'll take a look at it themselves actually and see, okay, yeah, well, whatever, and they'll move on. Other times the company will then look at it and say, I don't care, I want it gone. Now, this happens a lot with anime stuff, and to be fair, it could potentially be because the Japanese don't have the biggest understanding of American copyright law, and I'm not really sure how well it falls under there, because this is getting into international stuff. So, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to pretend to be, so don't cite me as a legal expert on this. But there have been American and Canadian companies that have done it too. And if that gets frustrating. And here's the thing, though. They do have a right to their copyright claim. What you should be mad about are the people who are supposed to be fighting on your behalf. The people who should be putting their foot down and saying, no, this is fair use, I'm not going to remove it. And that would be YouTube. See, so much anger is pointed at the people who own these copyrights legitimately that they then throw a fit. They throw a fit when they actually enforce something that they have a right to enforce. Now, the people who need to point out that you have rights to, the people who are supposed to be fighting for you, or at least providing an outlet for you to, is YouTube. And YouTube, once they get notice that it's fair use and they file it and it's accepted, they should know that this is, fair use. This is fair use. It's pretty clearly fair use. But they don't. They'll just kowtow to whoever because they're afraid of getting sued. They're afraid that if they stand up for you, they'll get sued, even though it clearly states right there under the law that you have a right to use it. So instead of protecting your butts, they go ahead and let it happen. Unless, of course, you're a partner. Because once you start making them money, then they'll fight tooth and nail for you. So again, your anger is just focused at the wrong people here. Now, I can understand why people are afraid to, say, get mad at YouTube because, where the heck else are we going to go? I'm seriously, fervently hoping that someone actually does open a legitimate competition for YouTube. Seriously, that's the only way you're going to get YouTube back on the side of the user is if they actually have to compete to keep you. If they know you're not going to go anywhere, because, where are you going to go? VO is pretty much Hulu now. Where are you going to go? Dailymotion? Dailymotion's got all kinds of other weird sub-rules where something will fly today, and then it won't tomorrow, and then it'll be able to be done again today. All kinds of weird stuff. And people, even though there's like supposed to be a non-adult material rule, have broken it repeatedly. So, it's confusing there what the rules even are. There's all these other places where you can host videos, but there's not much room for interaction with other people, like comments or, profile comments or anything like that, personal messages. But until the day comes that someone does create a competition for YouTube, there's really not a whole lot that's going to be able to be done, unfortunately. But seriously, guys, please stop screaming at the companies that own this stuff for enforcing their right to make money off of what they own. I mean, if you worked so hard on something and put it out there to sell, and then someone else just took it and copied it and put it out there for everyone and was giving it out for free, you'd be a little upset too. Because this stuff, they don't just whip it up for free and then rake in easy cash. This does cost money to make too. You got to keep that in mind. So yeah, just basically, please watch where you're pointing your rage cannon. That's all I gotta say. It can suck sometimes, but there it is. These people do work on what they do. You can argue that certain people get paid disproportionately for doing less work than people who work harder or whatever. That's not the issue here. That's not what we're dealing with. The point is, when you do that, you are screwing over everybody. I know everyone likes to look at the rich people, the CEOs of the companies, or the actors who get paid a ton or whatever, and it's like, yeah, sure, you're hurting them, but you're also hurting, the staffers, the writers, the, behind the scenes crew that get royalties on this, all this stuff. So just, keep this in mind. That's all I'm asking. And when you get mad at the people who are supposed to be defending you, not the people who are supposed to be defending their rights. Because the people who are slipping up are the people who are supposed to be defending yours. Later.